channel. So please be on the lookout for them. Before we get started, I just wanted to give some basic housekeeping rules. Please do not forget to put yourself on mute. And also, this is going to be a very interactive session. I'm very excited. So if you have any questions for our speaker, please put them in the chat, or you can direct message me also. There will also be some questions that we will ask for the audience to participate, so please be on the lookout for them. With that being, and also this session will be recorded, and the recording will be provided to all participants within a few days. With that being said, I am extremely excited to introduce today's speaker and topic. For those who may know me, I personally have a huge interest in artificial intelligence and in machine learning. So personally, it's an absolute honor to moderate today's session. So firstly, I wanted to ask a question for all of us in the audience to think about. And that is, what is one area that almost all companies, irrespective of their industry or their organization size, whether you are a small restaurant or a large publishing house, what is that one area that most companies focus on and strive to really deliver on? Well, I would say it's the overall customer experience. And an integral part of that customer experience is delivering a top-notch customer support. It is so integral to your business, and it's naturally, you want to keep your customer base happy and satisfied. Now, when you look at the past few years, artificial intelligence has been playing an increasingly pivotal role in shaping the future of customer support. Take a look at chatbots, for example. It's come a long way. We are now armed with better tools, AI-based tools and platforms that can allow us to transform that customer service experience. It's an absolute fascinating time that we're living in. Now, with that said, I have the privilege to introduce today's speaker, Avijit Biswas, who is the co-founder and CEO of Synapse. Now, I will let him tell you more about Synapse, but all I can say is that it's an exciting AI ML-based company that InterraIT has the honor to partner with. Mr. Biswas has had a tremendous career. He has advised and worked in organizations to include SAP, Siemens, and he was also a partner with McKinsey. He has also studied at Jadavpur University and IIM. Abhijit, thank you so much for being here, and I will pass it on to you. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Joya. Really a privilege, and thanks to the whole team, Ranjan especially. And hope I'm able to do some justice and ignite some interest in AI and the whole topic of customer support. Let me. I'm not that good in Zoom, but let me just manage to get the pages up. This would be a fairly interactive session, friends. So. Be ready with your chat messages, with your feedback. And I already saw one feedback saying when Joya asked the question, what's one area that even a small restaurant to even large corporations that they are struggling with? I saw one pretty nice, interesting response which said performance. Yes, and we'll get to that performance. I mean, even so performance is a pretty big word. Right, and that can also be broken down into what are the key drivers that lead towards performance, right? So, so that's what I'm going to spend some time on. And customer support, particularly in the pandemic times, has changed dramatically. And irrespective of which part of the world we are living in, we have seen stuff change like we have never seen before. In fact, this is something I picked up from a recent McKinsey study that in a matter of 90 days, it's not the last 90 days, but during pandemic, in a matter of 90 days, leaders have vaulted around 10 years. I mean, what otherwise they would have taken 10 years in consumer and business digital adoption. My kids are all grown up and left home, but for those of you who still have children, I'm sure you have faced the brunt of what it is like to adjust to digital classrooms, right? And then also have both of you working digitally, remotely, and doing your work. So this is a pressure that was brought on to us, again, irrespective of which part of the world we live in. And the industry has responded to it like what otherwise McKinsey believes would have taken 10 years. So that's the kind of a tectonic shift that has happened. It's not yet over, and it's continuing to happen. If you ask me, the last time when the world has seen anything like this was possibly a little over a century back, when horse carriages were giving way to motor car, right? And then obviously it would lead to questions: what happened to the 4 beautiful horses that I own, right? Which my dad bought, right? And I grew up with them. So what do we do with these horses? I love these carriages. So do I just get rid of them? You mean to say there's no use for these nice horse carriages at all? Tough ones, right? These are very tough ones. And for about 10, 12 years, they coexisted. And then by the time it was about 1910, 1912, horse carriages would have disappeared, right? So that's the kind of a shift that is on. And with anything futuristic, the future is here, but it's not uniformly distributed because people don't see the future alike. A lot of people take time to kind of embrace. They understand intellectually, but they take time to embrace, and some always embrace faster than the others. And you know what? I'm going to keep using retail as an example in the customer support story. And customer support, as Joya mentioned, is so central to anything. I mean, even if we fall sick and if we were to go to a hospital, right, whether in Bay Area or in Bangalore, I would expect Kaiser to respond to me in a certain way, or Manipal to respond to me in a certain way. That's not medical prescription. That's not medical or a pathology test. I mean, that's just being attentive to what I'm asking, right? And what I may be asking may be quite simple, which is that doctor available tomorrow? Or whom should I go to if I have this kind of a problem, right? So, so customer support is ubiquitous. Now, I know this chart could be quite heavy, but the deep blue is basically showing the growth that the leaders in the retail industry has had, even through the pandemic. It's unbelievable. People are talking about economy being down, economy being affected, so on and so forth. And here are the guys, the retail leaders, and this is US numbers primarily, who have registered 36% growth in e-commerce. In grocery, drug and general merchandise, it's like 12%. So in every sphere, if you notice, in clothing, accessories, and footwear, and just before we open the webinar, I was just sharing with Ranjan that thanks to Technovate, I'm wearing a shirt after 18 months. So yes, clothing, accessories, and footwear sales have dropped. But look at the difference even there. The leaders have dropped by 14%, whereas the laggards have dropped by 33%. So the deep blue are the folks in the top quartile, and the light blue are the folks in the bottom quartile. For the gentleman who talked about performance, to Joya's question, here is the answer. So the performance of these just in retail, right? And if you look at similar numbers in any industry, you would see this kind of a stark differentiation that has happened. So actually what this pandemic has done is this pandemic has disturbed, actually it's demolished this meaning of industry average. It means nothing. The average means nothing because a bunch of guys have broke away and they have gone ahead so far, and there are the other lot who's like still scrambling to understand what's really happened. Yeah. So, and once that is set in motion, it becomes extremely difficult for the light blue guys to catch up with the deep blue guys. Yeah. Feel free to keep commenting, and I would keep taking your messages and your comments on board as I speak, because this is a lived experience in the business that I am in. Because and I'll come to what we do and what Synapse does, and I'll come to that, and I'll come to a little bit of introduction of Synapse as well, but I'll get to that a little later. So this is a lived experience. We are living through this, and I can talk a lot on how this is playing out across industries. In retail particularly, the driver of this gap, right? And this gap is increasing unless the light blue folks really master enough courage, capability, and do something. So there are broadly 6 drivers to this difference, and they can be classified in 2 categories. And I think most of us can relate to this. So one category is the ability to quickly offer and sustain the online experience, right? So maybe you are not online before. Maybe you always, believed in store experience and you wanted your customers to come to the store. Now suddenly the store is not open any longer. The COVID protocol does not allow people to get in. So what do, right? You know what? I mean, about a year back, the leaders in retail in the US started offering curbside pickup. And there are a whole host of others who could intellectually understand what that would mean, but they couldn't get their act together to offer that. And what would curbside pickup mean? You call up or you go to the website, you order for that, and then you are given a number, you are given a time, you come at that time in your car, and you come and pick that up, right? So you don't really meet anybody. Even the package is kept outside on the pavement. So you just know that this is your number, and that's it. You just tally your number and you pick that up. I mean, if something is missing, of course, you can call up. Who are you calling? You're calling customer support. Now, if you're able to do that transition, that's the difference then between the deep blue and the light blue folks, right? So are you able to offer, or were they able to offer seamless omni-channel experience? What does that mean? That would mean I call you, and for some reason, I'm not getting the right answer. I go on to chat and I ask the same question, and then I'm feeling a little anxious, and I also drop in a mail. Do I get the same response, or do I get different response? Because it goes to different groups of people, and they are trained differently. So I get one answer on a mail, I get a completely different answer if I'm speaking with somebody, right? Deeper and engaged communities, because this is something that really kicked in during the pandemic. Because whom do you ask? You can't ask the in-store reps, in-store assistants. So whom do you ask? You ask people like yourself. So travel, hotels, they had these communities, they had these ratings always in place, but suddenly that came in. So even for Cisco routers, the community became important. You see what I'm saying? So for something that you would otherwise not think of community, you would think of buying a Cisco router based on specs, based on what you need, based on possibly talking to your analyst or talking to your consultant. Now the consultant is no longer available so easily. So whom do you fall back on, and whom do you ask? The first time right self-help, I mean, this has been such a differentiating factor, particularly in retail and more so in others, is this: if I'm calling, am I getting the right answer first time? Because you are anyway passing through a pretty difficult period. And now if you're not getting the right answer, chances are you're going to lose your cool. When you lose your cool, what happens? Loyalty suffers. What happens if loyalty suffers? You switch, you move to a different brand, you move to the competition, right? So this is one chunk of factors. The other chunk of factors has been the in-store. So is the store, when the store started opening, and that has varied in the US from state to state. Is that state or is that store offering a COVID appropriate, are they following COVID appropriate protocol, right? Am I risking myself, right? Do they have Amazon? Now, I know Amazon Go has been going through some pretty serious challenges, but nevertheless, do they have self-help kiosks, right? Do they have this in-store technology? Because I don't want to ask anybody. I mean, that person may be very willing to help me, but I don't want to talk to her. In fact, the moment she starts coming towards me, I said, hey, wait. Do you have a kiosk where I can go and ask something? And if you don't have, I think this is the last time I'm coming back here, because if I am looking for whatever I'm looking for, I don't want to talk to anybody, right? And then if at all I'm forced to talk to somebody, then does this person know? And this is nothing to do with the pandemic. Even otherwise, does she lead me to another person, and then she leads me to another person, and I'm like, and then after a couple of rebounds, I give up, right? Which is typically the experience, right? Which is typically, unless folks are really well trained. So let me pause for a minute, or and feel free to react. These are, I would say, the top 6 factors that drove the difference in the performance of the retail giants, and look at how they've got separated.
Avijit, I hate to interrupt. So I think we have a question from the audience. It writes, and the question is, what does specialty refer to in this context, if it can be elaborated a little bit?
Oh, that is the category of specialty, anything that does not fall in the rest of the category, right? So that's my understanding, right? So so specialty could be pretty specific purpose tools or specific purpose consumables, which is not for everybody's consumption, but it is targeted towards, you know, very specific usage. So let me give an example. I'm conjuring up this example. I mean, this is let's say invisible ink, yeah, something like that. So it's basically something which is not for everybody's consumption, and it is targeted towards a very specific, or let's say geriatric healthcare equipments, right? I mean, you don't go shopping to a geriatric healthcare equipments. What are they? Wheelchairs, which are very easily managed, which can be very easily pushed. Walkers, which are pneumatically assisted. So, I mean, these are very, very, so who are the buyers? There'll be old age homes, the hospitals. So those are the type of very, very specific targeted, used by targeted group of consumers.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, keep your comments and questions coming. And so essentially what I'm establishing here is in the last 18 months or in the last 12 months, the digitalization and AI adoption has moved 10 years, which otherwise would have taken 10 years. And that has moved in, let's say, even if I don't agree with my past firm, McKinsey, might not have moved in 90 days, but it's definitely moved in, 300 days. I mean, that's the kind of progress it has had. And particularly in customer support in retail, these are the 6. And you could try this for any other industry of your interest, and you would find a very similar dispersion. The drivers would possibly be different, but there would be certain drivers which I can absolutely vouch would remain common. So number 1, number 3, number 6, they would be absolutely common across industries. Okay. Now, one of the key differentiating factor between the leaders and the folks who have not been able to cope up and have then and hence fallen behind have been the adoption and the speed of adoption of AI. It's not so much intellectual agreement that AI is needed. It is how fast are you adopting it, right? How fast are you able to make use of it? You didn't ask me why I highlighted 4 out of these 6 in orange. The reason I did that is because these 4 are slam dunk AI areas, right? Absolute slam dunk AI areas. There could be others as well, but these are slam dunk. So the leaders are adopting AI extremely speedily, extremely fast, and obviously in retail they have rolled this out, and that's the reason the performance is showing, right? Now, what are they using AI in? And now we are talking customer support. That's the topic of the day, breaking barriers in customer support. What are they using AI in? If you look at customer support, right? I mean, there are 5 major archetypes which have emerged. They were different going back by 24 months, but in the last 12 months, these are the 5 major archetypes which have emerged. And there's enormous pressure on self-help. Hey, I don't want to ask anybody, right? I should be able to find out on my own, even if I'm buying a high-end Cisco router. You, Mr. Cisco, should allow me to do a competition analysis with your competition, right? Because I mean, come on, let's not be coy about it. I'm going to look at your competing products. So why don't you tell me, how do you stand vis-a-vis your competition, right? So help me with that question. That's my self-help question. The other self-help question could be, this is my spec. Can you help me get to that spec? Ankush Jana, you are spotting the screen. Could you stop that, please? Yeah, thank you. There are some spots appearing on the screen, and that I saw the name Ankush Jana. It'll be good if you don't do that. So this is, so self-help, there is an enormous pressure on self-help. Now that could go to the customer, that can go also to who's an user, an internal user of that company. Why? Because there could be employees like the in-store agents, the in-store reps, or customer support staff, right? So they could also benefit from this. I mean, not everything need to be prompted by a customer. So you should allow the customer to find that out on their own, and then I should be able to find out on my own as well without asking anybody. And this asking my neighbor became so difficult. So, and hence the pressure on self-help. I'm sure we can relate to that, right? The next archetype has been the in-app or the mail support desk. So everybody's got an app these days, including a Beamer or a car company, of course, any retail company. Everybody's got an app. Most of these apps also invite us to ask questions if I need help, but many of them are pretty limited and pretty restricting in terms of menus. Even the best of the apps also offer menus, and menus are extremely restrictive, right? And most of the time you find that the menus are not good enough because what you need help with is not there in the menu. So the leaders have gone beyond the menu, and they're saying, hey, say what you want to say, right? And I am going to process what you're asking, and I'm going to do that instantly. And that I'm going to autonomously resolve, so that it almost becomes a self-help, right? So pure self-help would have been, you don't even come onto the app, you just go onto the site, and then you find out, here at least you've come to the app, and you are using one of my features, and then you are asking something, you're possibly gone through at least a couple of levels of menu, and then you are asking. So it's not, but it's still some kind of a self-help. Otherwise, there is an agent sitting behind who's trying to help you out. How fast I'm able to support that. Then comes the traditional agent that we are all used to, right? You call, you send a chat, you send a mail. There is somebody and she's reading the chat, reading the mail, or receiving the call. And then she's trying to understand what you're saying, parse that in her own mind, and then figuring out how was this problem resolved earlier. Because chances are nobody's asking an earth-shatteringly different question for the first time in the world, right? I mean, it rarely happens. So chances are I'm asking something that Joya has already asked, right? Or if not Joya, then Chetan has already asked. I mean, Chetan would have asked a year back, Joya possibly asked 10 days back, and now I'm asking for the same thing. So the responses are all there. Maybe there is an SOP as well. So if I get access to that in real time without searching, then my AHT or my ability to respond to that, the person who is asking, comes down from 10 minutes to 2 minutes. Now you can, I don't need to describe if that happens, how any consumer or any customer would feel, right? The fourth archetype which has emerged, which has been emerging for a while now, but over the pandemic, this has really picked up speed, is this social media thing, right? So if you don't get support in the 1, 2, 3, chances are you're going to go into Twitter and you're going to say, hey, this company sucks. Now that's really, really bad, because now you have a double whammy, because you have a problem of responding to whatever the problem is, and you have a problem of taking this person off this broadcast mode and taking this person onto a one-on-one mode, because you don't want to respond to that and then get onto a fight with this person on Twitter, right? Because then your entire customer base is watching what's going on. So this is really bad. So you really need to get your act together so that you are able to respond, right? And respond meaningfully, not just pleasantries and nice words, because these pleasantries and nice, how are you today? I mean, it's no good, right? Because you've come there to solve a problem. Last but not the least, and I was pretty impressed with this 2 years back when I first saw even Budget, which is a pretty low-end, it's an Avis group car rental, right? Budget, I don't know, I'm sure they still have it, but Budget had already launched this. When you call, you're getting a message that your wait time is going to be 8 minutes or 6 minutes, and then they give you an option. Why don't you leave a voicemail, okay? And we'll try and solve it, right? Otherwise, we'll call you back. Now, if you're driving, this is possibly the best thing that happened to you, because you don't have to now park somewhere, take an exit, which is unplanned, and you could just say whatever you want. I mean, that's it. Say a minute and a half, and there is no I'm here to help you. I'm so sorry that I'm so sorry for the inconvenience we have caused. And these are they mean nothing, right? These are sweet nothings which just occupy time, right? And time is money. I don't want to get into all this. So if I can just leave a message, and based on that, if the company can go ahead and solve it, it's almost like self-help. It's almost like self-help, not as good as self-help, because I had to take the trouble of dialing out and, Now, imagine if that is available, then when you call somebody and when you call a company and get the message that our customer support hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. Eastern, we all know how frustrating that kind of a message is. Now, if you have that capability available, that same capability can take over after hours, right? So even if you're calling at the dead of the night, you leave a voicemail. If I am able to understand what you have said, and if it's a simple thing that I can possibly send it to you right away, just imagine how nice the world would be. And if it's a complex ask and I'm not able to process like that, I could get back to you the same time. So you called me at 11:30 in the night, your time, and I say, hey, thank you for the message. Let me see what I can do. In 2 minutes, I actually solve your problem. Either that, or in 2 minutes, I come back and share with you that, you know what? I'm sorry that I couldn't solve your problem. This is a little complex for me. But what I've done is I have scheduled a call back. So you're going to hear from us the moment the office opens on Monday, between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. So it's not a blind, that kind of an impersonal message that you are getting. Somebody is coming back, and that somebody could come back on the call. And this is a voice prompted call, right? This is a text to speech call that gets dialed out, or it could be a message that goes to you, to your mobile phone, right? Registered mobile. And yes, I couldn't solve the problem, but I at least get assured that I'm going to get a call back. So these are the top 5 support archetypes across industry, right? Across industry. This has got nothing to do with retail, that have emerged over the last 12, 18 months. And what these guys have done, the deep blue guys have done, is essentially embrace portions of these and made the difference. So to the person who say performance, that's the linkage to performance. Again, I'm pausing. Feel free to give your comments. Is there anything coming, Joya?
Nothing yet. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat.
If you need more examples to understand what I'm saying, happy to share more examples.
Wouldn't it hurt if you can provide an example of this, or if you wanted to elaborate on
which one?
If you wanted to give an example, maybe of how this maybe comes in play for an industry besides retail.
Sure. So I gave you that example of budget, right? Let me give you an example of BMW. You know what? And this is a pretty interesting, almost like a joke. And this is to everybody, right? And I'm going to ask, and I'm going to pause for a while. Do you know what's the most frequently asked question when somebody buys an expensive car? What's the most frequently asked question that people buy after, people ask after buying a pretty expensive car? So you've got all your paperwork and everything. You are like driving out from the dealer store, you got your licenses and number plates and everything done, cleaned up. So all of that is done. And now you're driving your day one, right, on your new car. Can you tell me what's the most frequently asked question? Joya, any brave hearts?
I asked how much is the car maintenance. A couple of people asked mileage. What is the mileage? Service cost.
Hey, come on. People have checked all of that out before buying it, right? I mean, come on. That's not that you can't call up the service desk and ask.
We got quality. We got brand.
No, these are all pre-buy questions.
So we're asking, what's the post? What's after you buy the car?
Absolutely. Day one, you are driving the car. You own the car, for good or for bad. If mileage sucks, then it sucks.
Does it have autopilot? Gas cars?
Oh, you should have checked all of that. Come on. Is this the way you are buying cars? I want to make cars that way then.
So, someone mentioned breakdown service.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. But no, that's not the first, because the first day when you are driving out, you're so happy. The last thing that you're thinking of that your car is going to break down. Just think about it. Okay, so here is a clue, right? It's a happy question. Any happy?
Safety.
Yeah, Joya.
Someone mentioned safety.
Sorry, these are all pre-buy questions. Okay, I'll give that to you. The most frequently asked questions in expensive cars is, how do I save my favorite channel?
Oh.
How do I save my favorite FM channel, right? This is the local radio station that I listen to every day when I drive to work, okay? I know, and that was all done, right, in my old car. And now I have bought this new whatever, right? How do I do that? That's the most frequently asked questions. And you know what? For about 10 days after buying the car, because the first 2-3 days, often people are just so excited with the feeling of the car. They're not even, they just forgot their music. So, and then they remember their music as things start settling down by the 4th, 5th day. And then by the 9th or the 10th day, they've either figured it out themselves. And by the way, it's all there, where it's there in the manual, which is there in the glove box, right? And it is in page 34 of some company, or it is in page 7 of another company. So now imagine this is an expensive car, right? So you got a nice infotainment dashboard, you got a nice infotainment screen. Now imagine you asking this question. You just put your speaker on, and these are all connected cars these days. So you ask this question, you don't have to dial that number, that 1-800 whatever number. You just ask that question to the car. Hey, how do I save my favorite channel? Can you just guide me? And imagine whether the car does it or some AI technology sitting at the back does it, you don't care, right? You don't care. You need this answer. And suppose that now that page 34 opens up, yeah, with enlarged font on your dashboard, on your infotainment screen. Now you are driving, depending on whether you're left hand side or left or right, it's on your right. If you're in the US, if you're in India, it's on the left. So you are seeing that, right? You are seeing that. Now that could be a distraction. And now you ask the same car, could you read that out for me? And now she's reading it out. So that reading it out is very simple. I mean, that is not even AI these days. But responding to the question that you asked and opening up page 34 of the same book that you have there, by the way, that's AI in action.
So we actually had some, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. So now that call could move from, so essentially, what this example did, it took away one call from supporting live agents, which is very expensive, by the way. It costs anywhere between $100 to $200. You've just moved one single call away from number 3 to shift left to number 1. That's what we did with that simple piece of AI. Yeah, Joya, go ahead. You were saying something.
So we actually had some questions come in. One was regarding this slide. How can we arrange these archetypes? Is there a way we can arrange it into an optimal hierarchy for these?
Why should you? Why should you? This is a pretty hierarchy-less world. I mean, you do what you want to do and you do what you need, rather. So if you're in a company which is a pretty stable customer support during the hours, but you tend to be getting a lot of calls. I'll give you an example. If you're an oven company, okay, you sell ovens. Chances are that your call volume goes up during dinner time because nobody is using the oven at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by which time your call center closes down, right? But people are again starting to cook their meal at 6 o'clock. Now, if the oven is not working, I'm calling. So what you need if you're an oven company is to start with after hours. And you don't have to bother about all of this. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule that you got to do this and then you do this, and there's no hierarchy in this. You need this, you do that. Yep.
I may just get one more question because we have about 20 minutes. So out of the 5 archetypes, which support process does point 4 and 5 demand more intervention of human emotional touch over AI?
Oh, wonderful question. So, so in customer support, so this emotion thing is pretty, shall I say, hyped up, right? Let's say I am sad because I'm not getting the support, or let's say I'm angry, or let's say I'm anxious. Yeah, or it could be a combination of all of this. But what's the problem? The problem is my oven is not heating up, and I thought I'm going to cook a meal today, and I'm not going to, order for a or go for a takeout, and I'm not going to order. Yeah, I'm not going to ask Grubhub, or I'm not going to ask Uber Eats or Swiggy. I thought I'm going to cook a meal, and now the oven is not heating up. Now I could be sad, I could be angry, I could be frustrated, I could be whatever, right? But how do you? So do you choose to respond to the sadness or anger or frustration independent of solving the problem? So it's like if you have a disease and you go to the doctor, you could be sad, you could be angry. The fact that you are so unlucky to have got the disease, right? You could be like in whatever shape. And how often do you think the doctor starts treating that emotion first, even ahead of treating the disease? So in customer support, a much better thing to do is to treat the disease first. Give the prescription, like what needs to be done, right? Fix it, and then you can come to emotion. But the emotions mean a lot if it is a call center or a support desk which is more targeted towards upselling, cross-selling. So in the sales cycle, so I'm selling you an insurance, and now I want to sell some top up to you, right? So I want to scare you with COVID, or I want to scare you with, I don't know, some other virus, and then I want to sell you something more, or how good are your teeth? I mean, why don't you take a dental top up as well? So that's where the emotions come in. I mean, when do you pop the question? I mean, that's essentially, it boils down to when do you pop the question, right? So that popping the question thing, right, is where the emotion comes in. But when it comes to treating a disease, when it comes to treating a problem, I think the first thing is to treat the disease, treat the problem, and then the emotion can wait. So let me move to the next page, since Joya just reminded me we've got very little time. So you know what? All good things said about AI. Not everybody is embracing AI, as this page would have already showed you, right? Otherwise, everybody would be deep blue, right? Why are there any light blue? But you know what? Even for the folks who are doing AI, only 28%, or let's say 1 in 4 guys are being successful. That's the sad story. That's the real sad story. So you overcome all emotional baggages and whatever else, right? Decision making and all of that, and then you start an AI project, and then this is where you are. And what we realize is there are 3 large factors which drive this. The hunger for, because if you're using AI more as a toy and you want to just feel it, it's like I want to run a POC and then see what can happen. It's not going to succeed. It's not going to succeed. It's like you and I signing up for a Udemy program or a Singularity University program just because some of my peers are doing that. Actually, I'm never interested, so I'm never going to complete the program. Yeah, it's like that. There has to be a burning platform. The availability of data is a challenge, and lots of companies have not got that under their belt, and this is a real issue. The first is an issue of the leadership and the people being on board that they really need it to survive. Forget about doing well, just to survive. The second is a real problem, and that problem needs to be resolved. And then the third is also a real problem. Do you have the capability and the capacity. Often the capability is not that big an issue, but the capacity, I mean, you got to take some capacity out, right? I mean, there's some 2 people or 3 people have to be assigned to that. And whatever else they were doing, you got to adjust that. So these are, so essentially you got to make some serious business calls. You cannot wish an AI, right? And AI is not going to drop like a manna from heaven, right? So that's what it is. I wanted to do a little bit of exercise, but and I still want to do it. How much time do we have, Joya? 15 minutes?
I would say just above, just over 10 minutes.
Just over 10 minutes. So
Yes.
we'll do 3 minutes on this. Could you, based on whatever you have learned so far, essentially we are talking about a technology in customer support, which would be omni-channel, right? Which would be able to take inputs from email. You can see chat here, Slack or live person. You see, calling systems like Avaya or Vonage. You see social media systems like Sprinkler. What is Sprinkler? Sprinkler actually captures the tweets and the Facebook messages and all of that. And on the other hand, you are using Salesforce, ServiceNow, or some of these things, right? So you're sitting on all of these tools. Your knowledge may be on SharePoint. So this is basically the landscape. And you may be a retail player, or you may be a car company, or you may be a hospital, doesn't really matter. Okay, if you're a hospital, maybe together with SAP, you also have Cerner and stuff like that. If you're a bank, you have a Pega. So that's okay. But these channels on the left-hand side are the same. Could you take a shot at what should this AI, what kind of capabilities should this AI have based on whatever you have learned in the last 45 minutes?
So I put the question and I put the options in the chat. So if you can, take a look, I know it's a lot, but take a look at the options and put whatever letter you think is the best capabilities. What is the ideal ideal capabilities for customer support?
Yep.
So we have one is F. We have a couple of people who said F, which is must be omni-channel.
Okay.
A lot of people put F. Someone put G, should be able to understand customer messages autonomously and prioritize.
Okay.
Actually, omni-channel is a really popular one. G is also popular.
Ranjan, pardon my British English, British spelling rather. Joya, you too.
It's okay.
I don't like the Z so often. So, but these are very good. Is there a third one?
Let's see. Someone put I, which is must track customer sentiment.
So there is somebody who is really concerned about the sentiment. Yep.
We also have B, should be able to process attachments of any type and size. Let's see. F and G are the most popular ones.
Fantastic.
We have I. Yeah, I also, the customer sentiment is really important.
Anything else? Then we'll stop with the fifth one.
I got a K. All recommendations must be embedded in the help desk system, and agents should not be needed to toggle in and out.
So recommendation inside the help desk system.
And also a couple of N's that about bias. And AI should not carry forward bias.
Wow. So it should be able to de-bias. Fantastic. Love this. I love the feedback. What you guys did is a quick wish list of what could an ideal customer support software possibly have. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving the responses. So let me move on to a little bit of time to introduce what we do in Synapse. Now, you know what? Joya promised that she would get this to all of you. So you would see Synapse actually does what you ordered for, what the doctor ordered, barring, and I guess you had already guessed that, right? So we don't address this at all. And we believe this could be possibly done by someone else. This is important, no doubt. But when you are focused on fixing problems, we say, I mean, our view in life is this can follow. But fantastic set of feedback, folks. Can't get better. So that's essentially what Synapse does. So this is the company that I started with two other co-founders of mine. Interra so we are very proud to partner with Interra, and essentially we are omni-channel. We would embed the recommendation directly inside a Salesforce or a ServiceNow, and if you ask me, essentially take the light blue guys towards deep blue, or the deep blue guys, make the bar charts look even starker, right? I mean, make them get taller, right? So that's what Synapse is. Every piece of technology that we use in Synapse is homegrown. We own the IP. Lots of technology here is patented. We own the IP. We can do omnilingual as well, not just omni-channel, omnilingual. So that's what we are. So it's been great to have interacted, talk to you about what's happening with AI in customer support and with retail as the anchor story, and how Synapse comes into this. Let me pause. Joya, over to you for taking questions and maybe any closing comments that may come from anybody. Maybe I'll just do one more and take a minute. Essentially, if you start using AI and tools such as Synapse, we drop resolution time and AHT down by 70%. How does that happen? It's not unitary that every ask comes down by 70%. Lots of asks just disappear, as I had talked to you before. Like, you ask, how do I save my channel, right? I mean, that moves from 3 to the left, so you don't actually call at all. So the net result is the overall effort reduction is humongous, and you can see the cost reduction. So it's like a double whammy. Your cost is coming down, but your customer support or customer service is going up. So this is the impact on performance, right? So you can see what's happening. Your customer experience is cranking up while your cost is dropping dramatically. So now you realize, and I'm going back again and again to this chart because I love these performance metrics. Now you realize why the stark difference between the light blues and the deep blues, right? Because when you have cost coming down and your customer experience going up, essentially what are you doing? You are ensuring that your customer is not going to go out of you, right? I mean, that's the stickiness that you're going to get. Now, whatever I said works absolutely equally even with a hospital. Just think about a hospital that you go to. Just think about the kind of assistance that you need. Think about the car company that you appreciate, that you admire. This is what. So this is pretty much one or two levers here and there could be different, but otherwise this is true across. So thanks a lot. It's been great talking to all of you. And Joya, back to you.
Thank you so much for this fascinating presentation. I know I definitely learned a lot. It's really fascinating to see how AI is transforming customer service before our eyes. I had a couple of questions. I know we have just a couple minutes left, so I'm I won't be able to go through all of them, but one question was centered around employment. How will it help with employment? Because AI is bound to replace employment, employment to huge margin in customer and day-to-day fields.
Fantastic, great question, and I'm not going to skirt around this. So again, my favorite example, go back to 1900 to 1910. There were tons of coachmen who were hired. There were people who were making horse carriages. There were stables who were providing tons of employment. What happened to that? Right? While that happened, right, they disappeared. Suddenly there were tons of people who needed to be hired by Ford and by GM and then all the car companies, right? Automotive component manufacturers came up and they needed to hire more. And then the drivers needed, so the coachmen disappeared, but the new age drivers came about. So by 1915, 1920, the transition has happened. So do you still have stable? Yeah, that's like a private recreational stable, or if you are doing, you know, race horses and stuff like that. But the everyday transportation stables have disappeared, and that has moved to running garages and drivers. So that's the transition that's going to happen with AI as well. So yeah, we can't escape that.
We had a pretty interesting question. How can we predict that an AI-based call desk may be a viable option when AI may not understand the subjective queries behind the objective complaints about any product? And how can we advance AI for that purpose?
AI is already there. There is no advancement needed. So to the question, all you need to see is possibly just a Synapse demo and you will know for yourself. So,
there you go.
so what you asked, that technology exists real time. You can say anything and AI can understand, okay? Now, for those 5% that AI does not understand, which is absolutely right, because what is AI at the end of the day? AI is trying to mimic the human brain. Do you and I understand everything? We don't. Even though we may be a guru in one topic, even then we don't understand that topic entirely, right? So yes, AI would never be able to understand. For those, what AI need to be able to do is to know that I don't understand enough. That's the critical capability, right? Which often human beings lack, because human beings have got this emotion that they are shy or they don't want to ask, they don't know how to create problems. AI doesn't have all of those shyness or anything of that sort, right? So AI has that ability to understand that it does not understand. So then for those, AI would route it to the human being. So does AI replace human being? That AI is not there. That is what's called general AI. So if you go to Google and if you say general AI, so some people say it's like 5 years away, some people say 50 years away, but the science fictions are based on general AI. What is general AI? General AI is creating knowledge out of thin air. Today's AI is reading books and knowing and learning from it, much in the same way you and I have learned in our lives.
All right, I'll ask, I know we're running out of time. I'll just ask one more question.
Sure.
How would things change if the industry is ITSM and support desk cater to the employees? Is artificial intelligence practice mature and worth the investment here?
I would just go back to that dark blue and the light blue chart, and I leave it to you to decide.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really cannot thank you enough for your time. Is there any way, if people had more questions, just a call to action if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn about Synapse?
Sure. They can drop that to you, and
sure.
and you know how to reach me.
Yes. So feel free to message me if you have any further questions, and I'll pass it on to Avijit. But thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for participating. And stay tuned for our October Technovate series session.
Thank you.
So much.
Pleasure.